In this lecture, we're going to discuss how we can write our own simple local keylogger and Python. Hello and welcome. My name is Ahmad Khan. I am cybersecurity researcher and ethical hacker. And in today's lecture, I'm going to show you how you can write your own local keylogger, which will help us to spy on keystroke. This lecture, we are going to talk about Python, which will help us to write this keylogger. This will be very simple and basic keylogger and it will be local. So what I mean by a local? Local keylogger is a type of keylogger. Like I am giving you example. Let's suppose we have local keylogger. And let's suppose I have executed the local keylogger in my system. As I will type any button from my keyboard, it will spy on the keystroke and it will store in a local file, which will be a txt file or something. It will store on the terminal. It will display on the terminal. It will work locally, so it's clear from the name. And the another one is the uh, worldwide, you can say, like, which will help one. I can give you the example of this, like is we are seeing in LAN in one attack. LAN attack is LAN attack is local attack and the one attack is worldwide, you can say like this, wide area network. So the another one is remote keylogger. It will be like, you can consider this, which will help us to spy on any computer, like is we will send that keylogger to our victim, as our victim will execute, it will report through email or it will report to our server. This is my channel and this is our Facebook page. Please like this page as well. You can install our Play Store application as well. So let's get started. I'm using Python IDE for this lecture. You can use any other type of IDE like Visual Studio and Gani, etc. depending on you. So let's get started. First of all, we have to install one library and the library name is PyInput. This library will help us to spy on keystroke. To install library, it's too much simple. You can type pip install PyInput. You can type this command, it will install for you. In my case, I have already did this, I have already installed, so need to do it. So what I mean by library, maybe you know about that, but for those who don't know about library, like you can consider library as a collection of lines of codes. Like in a real type of example, if I will give you the example of library, what is a library? So library in any university is a collection of book where a lots of book and huge amount of book can exist. So in each book you can read in a specific topic. Like if you are looking for an English book, you are going to library and you are searching for that specific book and you are finding in that book your topic. Same is the case in programming. Library is a collection of lines of code. So these lines of code can be of functions, can be classes, constructor, depending on that specific code. So right now I'm going to import the library, which is basically PyInput. As I said before, this library will help us to spy on keystroke. To import any library, we are using a keyword which is called import and the library name, which is PyInput. I can import this library uh, with any specific name. Like how? What I mean by this, the name of this library is PyInput. I wanted to use this library, let's suppose, and the whole code like as an keylogger. I wanted to use the name of this library like keylogger. Like how I can do like this. For this I will type import PyInput. First of all, I will import the library PyInput is keylogger. So now I don't really need to use this word and my code again and again. I can use keylogger. So keylogger is considered as PyInput. So I keep the name of this library as in keylogger. So this is the name, like my name is Ahmad. So let's suppose I want to change my name. Someone calling me like Ahmad. So I am Ahmad, but someone calling me as an Ahmad. Same as the case is this. Py input, I am calling this library as keylogger. So I'm going to import py input, and from py input I'm going to import, from py input I'm going to import keyboard. I'm going to import these functions. So from py import dot keyboard I'm going to import key and the listener, which will help me and the keylogging of any keystroke. So this is few line of code which consists on library, and I import all these library. Sorry, this is one library, not all these library. First I imported by input. From this library I imported keyboard function, and I have imported key and key listener. Listener. So right now I'm going to create a list. So list is an ordered collection of data which can store any type of data in a variable. What I mean by this, first of all, let me show the syntax of the list. I will store why I'm going to create a list. So I'm going to store the keystroke in a list, like the keystroke, the keys of the victim will be like alphanumeric, which consists of digits, digits refer to integer, and alphabets and special character. So I'm going to include all these, I'm going to spy on all these keys. That's why I need a list. List will help me to store such type of data. For this, I'm going to first of all create a variable. The variable will be, the variable name will be logs, and I'm going to store a list and this variable. So this list will be for, and the starting I will create empty list, because I don't really need to store any data right now. I'm going to, then I will embed this list with the keys, with the captured keys. So this is the variable, and this variable I'm going to store an empty list. So I can use an inbuilt function of Python to create an empty list, or I can use subscript operator to store an empty list in that variable. But in my case you can do both. So I'm going to list and the parenthesis. So right now this is my empty list, and this empty list I stored in logs variable. Whenever our victim will type any key from the keyboard, like let's suppose I am a victim, I'm going to press any key 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 4 4 and something. So right now I pressed these keys from my keyboard. As I said, I am considering myself as a victim. So right now I pressed these keys. So obviously our keylogger will store these keys somewhere. For this we have created a list. So as our victim will press any keys from the keyboard, we will store the keys in a list. So that's why I created a list. Right now I'm going to create a functions. So the function will help us to capture the pressed keys. Like I pressed A, so as all victim will press any key from the keyboard, this function will help us to store it in a list. For this I'm going to create a function. Function, you can consider it as a box which consists of many codes. It could be like a variable, it could be anything. Like how? So to define a function, I will define a function. I'm not going to use an inbuilt function. I'm going to define my own function. For this I have to use a keyword which is called def, and I'm going to keep the name of the function pressed underscore button. So this is the name of the function. So it will take a parameter. It will take one parameter, and the parameter name will be so the parameter will be variable, and the variable name is key. So this is how I defined the function. Again, let me going to repeat it. First, I use the keywords to define a function. You have to use a keyword which is called def, and then you have to write the name of the function. And this is the parameter, this is where function can take parameter. In my case, this function taking a variable, and this is basically one parameter. This is how my function can take this parameter. This is a variable, but the function takes this variable as a parameter. So right now I am going to, obviously it will take key. The press key is the function name is press button. As I said before, this function will help us to spy the pressed keys, to capture the pressed keys. So obviously, let's suppose I pressed A from my keyboard, I pressed 1, I pressed comma. So as our victim will press any key, this where we are going to append this, we are going to store this. Of course, we are going to store the pressed keys in a list. That's why we have created a list, as I said before. For this, I'm going to use logs.append. I'm going to calling this method. This method will help me to append the list, to store the data in a list. So what I'm going to store in a list? Obviously, I'm going to store key. So far we did everything well. Right now, I'm going to save these keys in a txt file. I'm going to take a txt file. Obviously, this keylogger will give me a result of the pressed key, of the capture keystroke. So for this, I'm going to create another function. This function will help me to store these keys, to append the list in a txt file. For this, I'm going to write another function. I'm going to define another function. The function name will be write log. You can keep any name, but I kept write underscore log. So in the log function, what it will take is a parameter, obviously logs, because logs variable has a list. So inside this list, we have keystroke. So I'm going to give a parameter called logs. So far everything is well. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use context manager, which will help me to open a txt file, and inside the created txt file, this function will be able to write the data. For this, I'm going to use a context manager, and I can I can define the context manager with keyword. So I'm going to use open keyword, open function, which will open a txt file for me, and the file name will be log.txt, and I'm going to use a mode. So I'm going to use write mode. I'm going to open this as file, or I can use any name, my underscore file. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to traverse the data, the element of the list. For this, I'm going to, what I mean by traversing. Let's suppose we have some elements A, B, and C. I'm going to visit these elements. You can consider these are three boxes. A is a box, B is a box, and C is a box. I am going to visit these boxes one by one. First, I have visited A, second I have visited B, third I have visited C. So right now I am visiting both these three boxes one by one. So this is called traversing. So I'm going to traverse the data, the element from the list. For this I can use for loop. I will use that keyword for, and I can use any name here, character n what, n logs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another variable which will be like raw underscore data. It will be like character dot replace. I'm going to use replace method, and I'm going to replace this comma with this. What I mean by this, when we will execute our program, when we will execute our keylogger, when it will capture the data, let's suppose our victim pressed some keys from the keyboard. Like, consider I am a victim and I am trying to press any keys from the keyboard like hello. So how this program will capture this hello? It will capture H and double comma, E and double comma, something like this. So that's why I am going to replace, I don't really want the hello word and this format, hello E. I wanted to replace this. I wanted to remove these quotes. For this, I used a replaced method which will replace this quote with something like this. There is nothing. So it will be like this. So that's why I did it. Right now I am going to write this data. For this, what I can do, I can use my file dot write, and in my file dot write, basically this is a variable. What I'm going to use, in this variable we have logged a txt file. I'm going to write raw underscore data, and here what I'm going to do is, in the write function write.log, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep logs. I will pass log in this function as a parameter. You can see here, this is the parameter of this function. So right now, so far everything is good. What I'm going to do is, we created a function to capture the pressed keys. We have created a function, we have defined a function to write a file and write the data from the list which is captured from the keystroke of the victim. But we didn't define a function for onPress, means if the victim will press, for release, if the victim will release any button. For this I'm going to define another function which will be release underscore button. So what it will take key. This is for press, this is for release. So it will take key parameter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a condition if key is equal to key dot escape. It will return a boolean value false. So for this I'm going to use another context manager with listener. I will create a listener for this on underscore press. If the victim will press, what you have to do? You have to call this function. For this I have to call this function, and on release means if the victim will release, what you have to do, you have to call release function. For this I have to call this function, and I'm going to store this as a variable like listener, and I'm going to join this listener.join by using this method. Right now our keylogger is okay. We are ready to execute this program. So let's see how it's look like. For this I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to use a Linux system. I'm going to create another file, leafpad log.py, and I'm going to paste it. I'm going to save it by pressing Ctrl S, and right now let me execute it, log.py, and it's okay, it's an execution. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open Firefox browser. We are getting error here. Yes, you can see here key code object has no attribute replace. The reason is that you can see here it will consider the character as an integer. So we have to typecast that. We have to consider this as a string here by using str function. So I will copy it again, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use leafpad log.py. Yes, sorry, I will save it by pressing Ctrl S, and let me execute it again. The function, sorry, the keylogger is working right now. So let me type something like, this is the Ahmad Khan at school. Let me stop it and let me clear it, and let me search for a file. If I will type ls, and there will be log.txt file you can see here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this file nano log.txt, and you can see here this, and this is key dot space. You can see here after this we have entered space. I have entered space, not we have. So this is space, this is me, this is space, Ahmad Khan. You can see here this is this, and then space, then is, then space, me, then space, then Ahmad Khan. And you can see here this and space is and space and something blah blah blah. I hope you will enjoy this lecture. If you are really enjoying my programming tutorial, my programming lecture, please support me and help me. I will bring more tutorial for you. Thank you very much.